Hail, hail, the Celts are here, and what the hell do we care now, guys? It's still the summer, we're still in report card season, and this episode, I've actually been looking forward to this one quite a bit. For the third year in a row, Celts are here, we were invited to Lesser Hampden, or Glasgow City Park Stadium, whatever it's called, to see Celtic be in Youth Champions League action, where we could see the top prospects in the academy pitting their wits against the best of Europe's best academies as well. And this season was actually very interesting, very exciting, and we've seen some great moments and some great developments from the players, and some of them even made it into the first team this year. In the video today, we'll be doing as much of a report card as we can on the B team. Obviously, I don't watch their domestic football where they go and play Lowland League and all that kind of stuff, but from that Champions League perspective, I'll be able certainly to talk on that, as well as the players that we did see filter into the first team this season. You know, a little bit more about them, what we've seen this year, what we might be able to expect from them next year, as well as maybe casting one eye into that player pathway part of the club. You know, where are we looking after these players, and what players should we be looking after coming into the summer, whether that be through more first team minutes, moving them to Queen's Park because we have that arrangement, or Admira Wacker because we have that arrangement. We probably have an arrangement with somebody in Ireland that I'm forgetting about, or just anyone within the Scottish football kind of landscape in general. At any point in the video, if you do laugh, you learn, you like something or whatever, because everyone does love to talk about the academy, everyone does love to talk about the B team, who's coming through next, who could be the next hero in the hoops that we produce from our own ranks, as it were. And please do like and subscribe to the channel for more content like this. I'm pretty sure we'll be invited back for next year. I think Celtic are always quite happy to have Celts are here in attendance for the Youth Champions League stuff. If you enjoy that content, I'll actually link at the end of the video and in the description down below the playlist of all the B team stuff that we've had. You'll get to see match footage, as well as like an actual match report from myself, having attended the game, spoken to the manager as well at full time very often, not always, but very often. And yeah, let's just get stuck straight into this one, because there's not gonna be too much heavy lifting in this one. Like I say, I don't watch them week in, week out, so I'd find it quite disingenuous to go full on and talk about them to the same extent with the same conviction that I certainly do from the first team. But this year we had 4 home games, if memory serves me right, and for the most part, this type of formation, this type of starting 11 was pretty much the most common. There's maybe a few iterations here or there. A few times Bonner started in midfield. I could have sworn Ricardo played out here in a few games as well. Sometimes Turley started in midfield, sometimes Turley was part of the front line. But for the most part, this was basically the squad that went out in all the Champions League games that I watched, certainly. And a lot of these names will be familiar to Celtic fans who only follow the senior team, because a few of these guys did actually make it into the picture. Mitchell Frame has been kind of long mooted as being someone who could step up, but has never really done that. Maybe a bit similar to Robertson, who was very impressive this year and had noticeably actually grown season on season, looked much more formidable from a physical point of view as well. But players like Ricardo, Turley, Bonner, Daniel Cummings, of course, who, you know, maybe we'll save talking about him on this episode. These are names that maybe have a wee bit more excitement around them, that Celtic fans have seen little glimpses of and think, yeah, they might be able to do it, they might be able to break in. And I think from what I've seen across the shape and across the teams that we've faced, and we'll get into a little bit more of that in a minute, that all those players that people do have that extra level of excitement about, of the players that have actually made it to first team level in some capacity, whether that be joining in training, as well as like Kyle Ewer, who's just had a new contract extension, is that they've got a very good football IQ. You know, they've actually got very good composure, and we've seen a number of different tactical switches and changes from the players that we're talking about here. I think Turley showed himself to be, and it was a bit of a lazy comparison, because the Celtic B team play the very mirror image of the first team. So whatever shape Brendan or Ange has been doing, we've seen the B team replicate that in their Youth Champions League football. And Turley has been very comfortable in that press support attacking midfielder, whether you want to think of that as Hatate or O'Reilly, I don't know, but running in between centre backs in these channels here, pressing alongside the striker to be like a 2 up top when the opposition have had the ball, as well as coming back, making the lines tight between defence and midfield. Turley's shown a great kind of intelligence and ability to do that. Ricardo, I think we'd seen him last year, but this year he was much more like ever-present, much more influential in the game, and alongside Kyle Ewer, built a nice little platform to get out of midfield here for the most part, and looked really good. I was really impressed with Bonner. I think there was a game where he actually made some contributions. I didn't really notice it was him until I was looking back at the footage, and that kind of made me pay much more attention to him in future matches. And I actually think he's one of my favourites here. I think Jude Bonner looks like he could be a really good player. He's got some of that, when you watch lots and lots of football, there's some players that just do some stuff or just have a bit of a touch. It's quite hard to put your finger on it, but you can just see when someone's got that little bit extra something that maybe the average player doesn't always have. And Bonner, alongside Turley, I'd put them both in the same kind of category. They both strike me as guys that have a little bit of that about them. But from what we've seen from Ricardo, even in the first team and I've seen in the B team, his top-end composure, really good technique, and again, he's got a really good team ethic. We've seen him fill in some different positions as well, I'm sure, like I've mentioned. And tactically, Bonner, when he's been part of the front three, off the ball has made a really interesting position in like a central midfield area. And, there's been some, Turley's done a bit of this and that. Ricardo the same, maybe doubling it left back a little bit more. But it's a good thing to see, I would say, as a kind of tipping point of the video, that there's been a really good football kind of IQ, nice level of technique, good level of team understanding across the whole outfit. But I think Colby Donovan, the right back, is maybe the standout player that I've seen in this group. One of the youngest in the team as well, is now getting international credentials. And for how young and inexperienced he is compared to, I've seen Kyle Ure play at this level for 3 years. I've seen Robertson for the last couple of years, Agbert, DD, Cummings. I'd seen all these guys in seasons before. Colby Donovan might have played a little bit last year. To be honest with you, his name didn't jump off the page as a new name to me when I showed up this year. And now that it's been this season, it's hard to remember that kind of thing now. It's just the way it is, But at 17, maybe he's 18 now. 18 in September, so he's probably 17 when I first seen him. He's a guy that's just, and see with some players, again, at the different levels of the game and different ages and that sort of stuff, he just doesn't make mistakes, this guy. He, honestly, I've seen him recover situations very, very well. I've seen him support situations very, very well. He just doesn't get caught out. He just doesn't make mistakes, which sometimes can be a bit of a non-compliment in a roundabout way. He just gets on with his job and he doesn't let the team down or whatever. But genuinely, I don't think he's ever done anything and it's been bad or I can't really see it any other way, but I'm trying to get across the point that it's a really good compliment. The first game that I went to see this year was Celtic at home to Bratislava. We won 4-0 and it was a nice foreshadowing for the game that was going to come later that evening. We didn't actually see Ricardo start this one. It was actually Hatton took up a position wide left and we've seen Turley and Bonner be in a kind of double midfield situation alongside Ure. And this was a game we did look quite comfortable in. I don't think Bratislava were wildly levels below us, but because I think the B team, the Lowland League thing, kind of helps in this situation because the experience these lads have of going against men shoulder to shoulder for aerial balls and everything else as well. These kids didn't really, the Bratislava guys didn't really get anywhere near it. It was quite a convincing result. Daniel Cummings gets 2 goals in it. Turley scored a nice one as well. If you check out the footage of this one, we managed to get some good footage of the goals. And overall, there was some really, really nice play. The same team then went away to Dortmund and lost 4-0. And again, was that maybe a bit of a foreshadowing of what was to come? And it's this level of opponent, as well as then following that up with Atalanta away, where it was a 2-1 loss, where you're expecting to see the level, the potential, the ability of the team really tested at the highest level possible for the age group that we're at here. And although losing 2-1 away to Atalanta missed a penalty in the first half, the young Hoops took the lead in the 52nd minute before ultimately crashing out 2-1, a 2-1 loss. Again, not quite a foreshadowing for what would go on to happen later that night, but maybe did put the little sense out there that, that it wasn't going to go correctly to script, where Atalanta were going to beat Celtic in the senior team. And by the time it came for my next visit to Lesser Hampden, or whatever we're going to call it, was going to be against RB Leipzig. Now, I called RB Leipzig the kind of Ivy League of European youth football in the match video, if you go and check that out. And they really didn't disappoint in that sense. They did have 2 players in their team, but one was called Dix and one was called Ramsack, and I just will not ever let that go. But we actually seen some genuine wonder kids in this game with Vito Gebo and Nuhu Jata. These guys are very well regarded youth internationals, and on the pitch, very different players. One's massive, one's tiny, and they both have really good attributes that kind of complement that. But we were all over them in this game. Leipzig had some moments. They could have maybe done a little bit better, but we were the better team in this one, make no mistake about it. And it was the introduction of Ricardo kind of coming in here, and I do think the battle scars of Dortmund away, the near opportunity of Atalanta away, really did, kind of strengthen the resolve to get something out of this game. You really did feel an extra kind of cutting edge from the team, and Cummings was being very effective at this level at getting between the channels, getting one-on-one with the goalkeeper and making some good chances happen, and he really did benefit in this game here. It was great to see him score 2 goals against Leipzig. It really did kind of underline the bit of momentum that Cummings had this season for, should this guy get a chance in the first team? But not just the goals, but a very good display of tactical awareness. Like I mentioned before, Jude Bonner kind of dropped into left midfield in this game as well, as DD dropping back, and off the ball and on the ball, McManus and the whole coaching team at Celtic, I think, have done a really good job of replicating what we see at the first team in the B team here. And to a man, this was a very good result and a very good performance. We did go 3-0 up within the first hour or so before Leipzig did get a couple of goals back, and the last little bit of the game was a bit nervy, was a bit tense, but like I said, the guys came out swinging, and this game was a huge confidence boost, no two ways about it. So we're 4 games in, 6 points on the board, 2 games at home against Leipzig, who very tough game, Bratislava you expect to get, and then 2 elite away matches with Atalanta and Dortmund, so probably right on script, probably right about on par, maybe a little bit above expectations for the young hoops 4 games in. The next game is Bruges at home, which really did foreshadow what was going to happen later that night. A 1-0 victory, Daniel Cummings did good. You can see that same team shape and formation again, and I actually think Bruges was like the hardest opponent I've seen this season at Celtic Park. They were much more physical, much more Leipzig have got that Red Bull football going, where it's high energy, high pressing, people run into different positions and ask really difficult questions of the opposition, which was one of the games that really highlighted Kobe Donovan to me. And then this game really did emphasise it again, because their left hand side, this little guy Basiwu and Van de Perry were Bruges' best players probably on the day for me, and Kobe Donovan barely broke a sweat. He did get booked, I can't remember what it was for, but this Bruges team were like the closest thing to like a senior team out of everyone that had came to Lesser Hampden this year. This was a big test, a very tight game of like really extreme tests of concentration, composure and decision making. And again, for everyone to a man, you can see here there's only 2 subs made in, 3, I beg your pardon. This was a great result, this was a great test, and a very well earned 3 points, which really did put the young hoops maybe, I'd say certainly, ahead of schedule, ahead of expectation in the competition. Now, the Youth Champions League only has 6 matches, so this was the last game of the group stage, and it was away to Dinamo Zagreb. And again, was this a bit of a foreshadowing for what was to happen for the senior team, where we wouldn't get the result we expected to get, or had hoped, or had wanted, or whatever? Again, a very consistent team. But Isiguzu, who's been a backup striker, who is quite an exciting player actually when you watch him, is started in midfield, it says here. I wouldn't be surprised if, I didn't watch this game, I was at Barra's Art and Design that day for the Axom event, I'm pretty sure, and I didn't get to watch this one sadly, but I wouldn't be surprised if Isiguzu was actually in the front line and Bonner was in midfield, but it's hard to tell with these things from a distance. But a 2-1 loss in the end, which I think would have been a bit of a gut punch considering the good results back-to-back against Leipzig and Bruges. And that meant the Young Hoops finished in 17th in the table out of the 36 teams. So right bang spang in mid-table. Could have done maybe a little bit better. Maybe could have broke into the top 10 or something like that. Not too far away whatsoever. And really mixing it with the good and the great of European football. I think this has been a solid league campaign for the Young Hoops. The big games away didn't get points. I don't think that's a huge failure or a letdown or anything like that. And with the exception of the Zagreb game, beat everyone else, so a pretty solid outing, I would say. And then that's the final part of the tournament where their fixture list or their draw kind of mirrors our own, and they get their own draw. We also drew against Bayern Munich, but it was another return of the Red Bulls. It was Salzburg, and this is a one-legged affair. So away to Austria to play, I called RB Leipzig the Ivy League of European football, in terms of, if you think about these kids as like the school level, the elite kind of youth division of all these teams or whatever. And Salzburg, although they're in a smaller league than Leipzig, Salzburg is kind of the epicenter of that whole Red Bull thing. So I do not take them lightly, especially at youth level, far from it. And this was a huge test. European knockout, one-off game away from home against a team that is going to be super high energy, super well drilled, and have all that extra cutting edge that most youth other teams, that even in this competition, don't have to the same degree as a team like Salzburg do, who are so geared towards youth development and producing talent out of their factory, as it were. And this game they decided on penalties ultimately in the end. Both goals coming in the second half. They opened the scoring. Kyle Ure brings it back for us. And with Dargate and Pickford starting this game, these are 2 players that didn't really start much in the campaign, so I don't know if there was injury problems. So like Josh Didi, or maybe even the Hatton guy that had played earlier, or even McCardle's probably in and around the first team at this point. Maybe that's why he misses out in midfield. But really close to being an exceptional tournament. I think this is a very good performance from the young hoops, considering all the opposition that they had, and ultimately the consistency of the team as well. A nice consistent group here, playing all the games, getting this experience, which is probably the most valuable experience they're going to be picking up. Now, Daniel Cummings, we'll just say this, right, because obviously he's left the club now. I thought over the 2 campaigns I seen him play, and it was 2, I thought he looked better than Rocco Vata last year. I thought he clearly stepped up to the mantle this year and really led from the front whenever I watched him, and his Lowland League record does kind of back that up, I would say, although it's not the most credible of goal scoring record for a Celtic youth player, Lowland League of course, but all the same, I think this guy could have a decent career. We wish him all the best, and he put in a pretty good turn for us. Not enough appearances into the first team, obviously. We wish him all the best in the future. Now, Francis Turley was one of the first players from this kind of B team batch this season to get minutes for Celtic. I think it was all the way back in August. He get 2 minutes off the bench against St Mirren before, again, he's a youth international for Northern Ireland. He played those Youth Champions League games that we mentioned before. He played against Sligo Rovers, the Palma hat-trick game, if you remember that. But that was really it for him. This was his first season in the Youth Champions League. 2 goals, 1 assist for him. Not too bad at all. Jude Bonner managed to collect 11 minutes off the bench in a 5-0 win against Aberdeen, on top of his Youth Champions League exploits, which resulted in him, just the 1 appearance for the main team. And that second season we've seen Bonner, 7 games, 1 assist here. And I think there was definitely a game where his contributions would not have been captured because of maybe a little deflection off the pass or second ball knocked down for someone else, but he was effective this year. He was quite impressive. Now, Kobe Donovan had featured a little bit in pre-season, as you might remember. He's managed to get on the bench for the first team a few times, but he's actually ascended through Scotland under-19 internationals all the way through to Scotland under-21s, which has been absolutely brilliant for him, obviously. And getting that kind of international progression this year, I think, is underlined, or is kind of the proof in the pudding of how good he was in the Youth Champions League level, where he can now walk up an age bracket despite, not getting first team minutes like a lot of other Scotland under 21 players will be getting. And I say he's made the bench a few times for the first team without actually picking up the minutes, but at 18 years old, just turned 18, getting into the Scotland under 21s team is definitely a good accolade for him, and I think he's definitely a player to keep an eye on, a name to remember. The other fullback we've got, Mitchell Frame, is playing Scotland under 20s towards the back end of this season. Made no appearances for the first team this year. I don't even think he ever made the bench. And Mitchell Frame's a bit of an enigma. I hear sometimes that he's injured or whatever. A lot of Scotland under 19s action here, of course. We know about what he did in the Youth Champions League, like we've just looked at. But yeah, this is a weird one for a guy that had a lot of hype and a lot of promise, and it's just not really went anywhere now for 2 seasons, a season and a half. And Mitchell Robertson at 20 years of age, like I say, this year you've really seen a massive physical development for him. Could he be making the step up to the first team? I don't think anytime soon, just by how busy it is for us at centre back. But at 20, I think he is now outgrowing the B team setup. You could probably say the same for everyone else we've looked at so far, with maybe the exception of Mitchell Frame, but Colby Donovan, Jude Bonner, Francis Turley, I think they should be getting into some sort of first team picture this season, and Mitchell Robertson I would firmly put in that category as well. At 20 years of age, needs to get some first team experience. He does have that international Scotland under 20s here. He does have the Youth Champions League for us, did play in the Palma hat-trick game as well, so he's definitely getting closer and closer to that sort of situation. He's played 3 seasons in the Youth Champions League. I've seen him every year. 16 games in total, not a bad experience against a lot of very interesting opponents, as you can see here. Lazios and Feyenoords and Atletico Madrids and Real Madrids and Lazios and Leipzigs and you name it. So this is a guy that really, if we're looking after the players coming through, he needs to be pushed out the door now. In a good way, go and get some loan time, go and get some minutes, go and develop. Now, Kyle Ewer, when you watch Celtic B, really does embody the McGregor role. Has a bit more of a bite in him than McGregor. He's very happy to crack one from the edge of the box. Is very busy. Got a new contract recently, and I'm very happy for that for him. He's got some Scotland under 19s and 18s credentials, which is cool. He's basically the captain of the youth team for all intents and purposes. I'm not sure who always wears the armband, to be quite honest with you. Scored that decisive goal in Salzburg, which took the game to penalties, but hasn't really got anywhere near the first team. And again, at 19, turning 20 in the new year, this is a guy that, again, same as the last batch of players we've just looked at in the video, needs to be going out on loan, needs to be getting first team football. Sean McArdle, but at 17, he'll be 18 shortly, has probably had the most meteoric rise. Didn't start the Champions League campaign, came into it, positively influenced the team, no two ways about it, and even got 16 minutes across 2 games for the senior hoops as well towards the back end of the year, and his in-game intelligence, his composure really did shine out in those fleeting minutes that he did get. And if he's going to get more exposure into the first team, I think that will do him the world of good. Centre mid is very competitive for us, but if this guy is just about bubbling through, again, same as all the other players we've individually kind of screened here, but they really should be going out on loan to develop even further. Similar to what we've done with Anderson, is it? And Ben Summers. Ben Summers, who I was really impressed with when Postecoglou debuted him before he's had an injury. He went into Dunfermline, helped them get close to promotion. He went to Austria. I think they got promoted in the end. So Ben Summers is a player I'm really interested to see the development of. And I think Sean McArdle and a few of these other guys, not too far behind him. Maybe they don't show the promise and the prospect right now of being the next midfield main man for us or whatever, but we are kind of managing these guys' careers to the best of our ability for the here and the now. The main complaint is we don't produce enough players that get into the first team, and then really until the facilities are upgraded, which they are in process of doing at the moment, with where the B team is in the football pyramid, how often we lose players to other academies. You know, I think we've done an okay job with the guys that we're talking about here right now in the video, but that will change if we keep them in-house again, all of them. We need to get some of them out there, if not all of them out there, playing for second-tier Scottish teams, second-tier Austrian teams. Anywhere you can get them as close to guaranteed minutes as you're going to get in football, the better. I think overall the B team, looking at the situation, a few players getting a sniff at the team, lots of international youth experience, some great performances and some great results, some real character building, some real player building efforts in the Youth Champions League. They've kind of done it as well as they could, but that's the main thing I'm just kind of leaving the video with, is really to make sure that the good work from this season actually means something. They need to go out somewhere. They need to get significant minutes. Otherwise, that progression, it's like, winding up the thing. I don't know what it is, but it's ready to pop. And if you just keep winding it, eventually it just breaks down. And then I'm thinking about a toy or something. I don't know what. Comment section can help me out. What the hell am I talking about here? Winding it up, building that tension, squeezing that momentum into it, and you need to let it go. You need to go and play. You need to go and get minutes. Be the man in our team somewhere else. Make your name. Come back to us next season. All the better for it, and help the cause, as it were. So I definitely go pass marks for the B team. The individual players, every one of them that made their first team, kind of move or had a shot at, I would certainly be giving pass marks to. I didn't really see anyone play for the B team that was like bad or not good or anything like that. You can clearly see the better players or the more preferred players, is maybe the nicer way of putting it, to the lesser preferred ones or whatever. But a lot of them are quite young, and I think that the main thing you notice is just when you compare the ages and the physical stature of a lot of our players that are 19, 17 against Bruges, against Leipzig, against Dortmund, against these other teams, but their 17, 18, 19-year-olds are physically very, very different. And I know that's a bit of a buzzword, a bit of a cop-out from a lot of people around Scottish football. Gordon Strachan obviously made this a bit of a meme, but when you look at Youth Champions League football, it hits you right in the face. Like, these guys are all a foot taller, they're all like a good couple of stone stronger, and they're all a couple of yards quicker. You just can't do anything about that, and if you're outmatched in all those kind of physical categories. So they need to be made to become better players, which we've seen other people in football, in all countries, have to cope with the physical deficiencies they've got, maybe as a squad in this case, or as an individual. But it's deliberate. It has to be, and be the thing that you optimise with decision making going forward for loans and transfers and all that kind of stuff going forward. So I'd certainly say pass mark all round for all the B team, everyone involved. I had a lot of fun going to those Champions League games. I'm looking forward to doing the same this season as well, of course. Get into the comment section down below. If you watch the B team every weekend, I'd love to hear from you. If you went to the Champions League games, the same obviously as well. Any thoughts and feelings on the B team, the players that made the step up or the half step up or whatever you want to think of it? Feel free to drop them down below. If you haven't done so, please do like and subscribe to the channel for more content like this on screen. And now some other stuff that we've made that YouTube thinks you might enjoy. Hail, hail, and on the hoops.